Good evening, and happy April Fool's Day. My name is Stan Holmes, and I'm with an organization, a citizens group, that was formed last year, specifically to challenge Rocky Mountain Power's attempt to penalize rooftop solar customers. So we were successful, as Lindsay pointed out, and as Matt pointed out. And what I'm going to do tonight is to provide some details about this one sector of the current fight between our carbon-based electrical utility and advocates for clean energy and clean air. I'll talk about who's involved, why it's important, and what concerned citizens can do. Pardon the graphics. I don't claim to be the pro in this area, but in any case, I think you get the picture. There is a fight underway. In round one last year, there was a groundswell of public opposition to Rocky Mountain Power's solar surcharge request, and that led to the Public Service Commission's decision to put that request on hold pending further investigation. We're now into round two. Rocky Mountain Power, characterized here as King Coal, is again looking for a rate increase on solar net metering customers who appear here as Sunny Kilowatt. The PSC is now set to examine the costs and benefits of customer solar power. Again, what happened was the PSC decided last August that Rocky Mountain Power didn't present sufficient data to substantiate their request for the rate increase. The surcharge, the monthly surcharge, and they put it in abeyance. Well, the time has come to look at the details, and the PSC will later this year make a determination. As Lindsay indicated, Rocky Mountain Power and its parent company, PacifiCorp, are part of the coal industry. I think it's Huntington in the upper left. Rocky Mountain Power actually used to be Utah Power and Light. Celebrated its centennial in 2012. But basically, they're part of the coal industry. They mine it here and they burn it here. Damages from Rocky Mountain Power's coal are felt not only in Utah, but around the world. There's going to be a little bit of repetition here with what Lindsay presented, but I think some of these points deserve restatement. Here's a quick reminder that while Utah is among the top 10 solar resource states in the nation, our dominant utility thumbs its nose at that resource in favor of fossil fuels. There are no Rocky Mountain Power-owned solar or wind facilities in our state. Third-party solar comprises less than 0.5% of Rocky Mountain Power's fuel mix. You can see what gets the lion's share of our monthly utility bills. It's coal and gas. This should come as no surprise since PacifiCorp, and as was pointed out, its parent, Berkshire Hathaway Energy, are heavily invested in fossil fuels. PacifiCorp with approximately 72% investment in fossil fuels. Berkshire Hathaway is around 64% mix, but it's almost 2/3 for Berkshire Hathaway. Wait a minute, you say. What about Rocky Mountain Power's solar lottery and the Blue Sky program? And what about WhatSmart? Aren't they good faith efforts to offset fossil fuel combustion? Well, remember that Rocky Mountain Power does not use corporate funds for the lottery or for Blue Sky. Those programs are funded by donations from customers who want to support clean energy. So the utility is not invested in those programs. As for WhatSmart customers, they, like solar customers, may see rate increases in the future for not consuming enough electricity. Consumption is critical to Rocky Mountain Power's current business model, the traditional utility model. Let's take a quick look at Rocky Mountain Power's primary target today, residential solar net metering customers. This is how net metering works. A customer puts solar panels on her roof, and the cost has come down considerably in recent years. Solar energy is converted to AC power that goes into the house. Any excess flows into the power grid and most likely into the nearest neighbor's house. A net meter shows how much power goes in and goes out of the solar customer's house. A net excess of power at the end of the month is applied to the next month's billing. This continues through the year until March 31st. On April 1st, today, the solar customer forfeits any remaining excess credit to Rocky Mountain Power. And they start with a clean slate for a new energy year, which begins April 1st. No fooling. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, according to Rocky Mountain Power, solar customers are not paying their fair share of infrastructure and other grid-related costs. They say the basic customer charge that we all pay doesn't cover basic costs. These costs are embedded in what we pay for each unit of utility electricity. When you use less fossil fuel generated electricity, the utility loses money. Rocky Mountain Power also claims that solar customers are shifting costs to non-solar customers, and that solar folks are also reducing profits to Pacific Corp shareholders. Not so fast, say the clean energy activists. Power from solar customers reduces the amount of coal and gas that has to be mined and burned. On a hot summer afternoon, solar power helps the utility meet peak demand. These are cost savings. Additional power plants don't have to be built. And since solar is consumed locally, less power is lost over long transmission lines from distant power plants. More cost savings. Oh, and there are all the hidden costs that Lindsay mentioned, what are sometimes referred to as externalized costs, that are offset by solar and other renewables. These are hidden costs of carbon. Those are costs the utility doesn't want to talk about. Asthmatic children, lost sick days from work and school, contaminated mine water, coal ash dumps, and dare we say it, climate changing greenhouse gas emissions. These are costs our monopoly utility wants externalized so that the public continues to pay for those damages. They don't want those costs internalized into the rate-making structure. The Public Service Commission is now looking into the merits of each side's arguments. Its solar cost-benefit study is just getting underway. The Sierra Club, Utah Clean Energy, UCARE, HEAL, and other pro-renewables groups are involved in the process, as are individual citizens who've already submitted comments to the PSC. Remember that if you submitted a comment, and many of you here probably did, during round 1, you need to submit another comment for round 2. I'll give you more information about the new docket in a moment. Pacific Corp and Rocky Mountain Power have already weighed in. Their strategy is to limit the study to one group, the 2,700 residential solar customers, and to one grid issue, peak load analysis. They also want to set the research parameters, and they want to conduct the research as well. The pro-solar side wants all the cards put on the table for a comprehensive assessment by the Public Service Commission. We want every value that solar brings to the grid identified and assessed, and we want the Public Service Commission to determine what social and environmental costs of carbon are offset by switching to solar energy. So the question is, how do you think the Commission should conduct this study? They're taking public comments now. Well, we know from opinion polls, we've got some conducted by Dan Jones for KSL News, Deseret News, another one in Colorado by 2 polling firms. We know that Utah citizens want more investments in renewable energy, and that the pro-coal numbers are pretty low. But let's say you don't have solar panels. Why should you care how round 2 is decided? Do you have a horse in this race, or a contender of the ring? Suppose Rocky Mountain Power prevails this time. Will investments in rooftop solar plummet as they did in Arizona last year after a similar solar penalty took force? Will a new anti-solar rate structure set a precedent for future rate cases, serving to further deter private investment in renewables in Utah? Will ratepayer money continue to flow to Rocky Mountain Power fossil fuel facilities that end up as stranded assets in the future as anti-coal regulatory costs continue to rise? Will the general public continue to eat the carbon costs that Rocky Mountain Power refuses to acknowledge? Will Pacific Corp leverage an anti-solar decision in Utah to further limit renewables in its 6-state network? And it's interesting, Pacific Corp just came out yesterday with its 2015 Integrated Resource Plan, IRP, and it's a projection from this year to the year 2034. Their investment in their fuel mix in renewables actually decreases between now and 2034, from 9% of their fuel mix to 7% in 2034. So with as little as they've invested in renewables at this point, they plan to invest even less in the future. Fossil fuels remain at around 72% for much of that time period. Around 2032, natural gas overtakes coal. But it's still heavily dependent on fossil fuels, and especially on coal until the tail end of that 20-year horizon. We know from, let's see, will the anti-solar campaign being waged nationwide by fossil fuel forces, Edison Electric, ALEC, Koch brothers, be further empowered by a victory against solar in Utah? And then there's also that climate change issue. Precedents are going to be set this year, depending on how the Commission rules on Rocky Mountain Power's effort to get its foot in the door in terms of the ability to stifle the expansion of solar power in Utah. There are some things you can do. I was so impressed and encouraged July 29th last year when there were so many people, many of whom don't have solar panels, who spoke and testified until 11 o'clock at night, telling the Public Service Commission, all but I think one or two folks, were dead set against the penalty on solar. So you should care about what's happening here. The Public Service Commission needs to hear what you think it should do to best serve the public. Here are a few suggestions. You can submit a personal comment to the Public Service Commission solar docket. Just a matter of sending an email to the docket number, or you just put down the solar docket and they'll know where to route it. The message is basically for the Public Service Commission to ignore what Rocky Mountain Power is trying to do to limit the study to its own advantage and have them open it up. Let's look at all the facts. There are some costs that solar, that the society incurs from shift to solar. Coal miners put out of work. But let's take a look and see where the chips fall. That's what we want. We want a full and fair assessment of the impacts of displacing fossil fuels with solar. If you belong to a community group, you can encourage them to pass a resolution or just send a letter. Basically, telling the Public Service Commission that you expect, and the public expects, a comprehensive examination. And then lastly, Utah is in the minority of states that does not have a guaranteed renewable portfolio standard. We have a goal that's negotiable. There is a petition drive that recently began to get Utah to firm that up. So it's a guaranteed 20% of renewables in our portfolio by 2025. I would encourage you all to sign that petition, and that's out on the tables in the front. And I believe that's my time. Matt, you're up.